This is 7 News High School Red Zone Review Preview.
Good evening, everybody. Good to have you on board here on WSPA.com and WSPA Plus. We're getting ready for week number 7 in the high school red zone. Early on in region play, a lot of teams trying to get a foothold. In week 6, there were some key region games. Had several of those in the 5A ranks. Let's begin with a look back to Region 2 5A and a showdown between Dorman and Burns. They went in as top 10 teams in the SC Prep Football Media Rankings, each 3-1 overall, 1-0 in the region. And Nick Means, he meant business. That's a 79-yard sprint in the opening quarter. Cavaliers in the beautiful new stadium for Burns at the 7-0 lead. Early second quarter, Kane Rogers and Chew Harris, and Burns at a 14-10 advantage. Midway through the second period, Rogers on the run, but he has it picked off by Jabez Thomas, who had a huge game. That's a 30-yard pick six. Dorman had a 23-14 lead at the half. Rogers later hitting Harris on the wide receiver screen. Then Chew does the rest, some pretty fancy footwork. And Burns had cut Dorman's lead to 5 at 26-21, but midway through the fourth, Thomas off the direct snap, he'll take it in, and the Cavaliers go in. It's a mild upset. A Dorman team which had some bumps in the road in recent seasons, and Burns also trying to have a renaissance year. Well, Dorman got the 12-point win, a very big one in the young head coaching tenure of Jake Morris.
This is huge. I mean, it's why we play the game. It's why we play the game. Anytime you come over here, you know, we're both programs are back up. Anytime you come over here, have a game like this is massive. Our guys have been locked in. They bought in. They knew what they wanted to come do. They had a goal for it. They came out in the first half, and they were ready to roll.
And with the win, Dorman snapped a 3-game losing streak against Burns in their series. Gaffney and Spartanburg doesn't get much better than that kind of matchup as they got together at Viking Stadium, but Gaffney has dominated the series. They were trying for a 9th straight win, although the previous 3 had been decided by a total of 14 points. And Trey Burke and Kevion Ferguson for Spartanburg getting together in the opening quarter. However, back comes Gaffney. They got a big game out of Josiah Hill. They need someone to replace Jaden McDowell, their injured star, out of the backfield. He had 121 yards. That was one of his 2 touchdowns. That tied the ball game at 7 apiece. A little over 8 minutes to go in the third, and Burke has his pass picked off by Ty McGill. And there's a second interception on the night. This one turns into a pick six. Gaffney had a 14-7 lead. They count on Hill to give him a larger lead, actually to snap a 14-all tie in the fourth quarter. Hill and the Gaffney Indians move on to the victory on the night. It was a close game in a lot of ways, including the fact that Gaffney outgained Spartanburg by just 7 total yards, 336 to 329. But in the end, the defense prevailed. So did the offense in a 7-point triumph.
Coach Hodge and his staff does a great job. Hats off to them guys coming out and playing a good game, and we were just fortunate to pull it out in the end. You know, just excited for these guys. I'm excited for this win. This is a huge win for us. You know, 2-0 in the region. That's what we wanted to do when we came here.
And they continue dominance. It's been a close series overall. Gaffney now leads at 55-52 with 3 ties, but 9 straight wins, although yet another close outcome. Eastside and Boiling Springs had lost to Spartanburg and Gaffney respectively in the previous week on homecoming at the home of the Bulldogs. Izell Johnson in the second quarter gives his team a 21-7 lead. Back comes Eastside. Keelan Durham. They've got some really good guys out of the backfield as Andre Wolcock's team. Durham right there. How about big sophomore Deshae Mitchell? Mitchell to the end zone and some acrobatics at the end. Look at the big fella tumble over, and he cut the deficit to 21-14. However, Emery Logan and a nice catch by Grayson Crow set up a Logan to Jaden Gray TD, and Boiling Springs moved on to the win. Just the second meeting since 1977 for these 2 programs, and the Bulldogs take it 42-17. Also in Region 2 5A, Riverside and Wade Hampton. Generals trying to snap an 18-game skid. Tegan Hamrick on the rollout. Owen Downs. And then it's Coleman Batson getting in, cutting an early Riverside lead to 7-6. But Peyton Stevenson on the ensuing kickoff finds daylight. It set up a Gideon Murheeb touchdown, and Riverside makes it 6 in a row against their neighbors just down East North Street. 41-15 is the final score. Other action last Friday in Region 2 4A, unbeaten Seneca going to play its rivalry game against Daniel, and the Lions, trying to make things happen after falling behind in this game. 9-0, then 16-6. That was Kingston Bibb. Then Bibb with a touchdown to cut the deficit to 16-13. They counted on the big fella to eventually give him a 20-16 lead, and Daniel makes it 8 in a row and gets a foothold in Region 2 4A with a 27-16 win. BHP and Chapman, a non-region game, the #1 team in 3A, came flying out of the gate on the road, trying to get to 6-0. Chapman off to its worst start since, well, about 20 years ago. And that was Noah Thomas after an onside kick got BHP the ball first. And then D. Chester with the interception set up an MJ Earl touchdown, and Belton Honeypath wins again. They've taken 6 out of 7 all time against Chapman, 45-0. Woodruff and Wren, an unbeaten Woodruff team, off to a 5-0 start for a second straight year, trying to get in the way of Muntu Brown and the Golden Hurricanes. Rylan Renfro off the bad snap, and Wren taking advantage of that. And speaking of Brown, well, he gave him all kinds of momentum. Give it to the big fella. He's going to get you close to the end zone, and then he took it in, and Wren rolled on to the win. Just the third time those schools have gotten together since the late 70s. Wren took it 35-7. Abbeville began last Friday as the #1 team in 1A, and they had Westside come to their place. A game originally scheduled for Anderson, but there was a field issue at the home of the Rams, who entered the game 0-4, and they were trailing into the fourth quarter. But Bear Woods and his fellow freshman Jay White get together to tie it at 20. Then the turnover sets up the Westside offense again. Keelan Powell with a game-winning score. And on their way to the win was Westside. For the first time this season, they've taken 3 in a row from the Panthers. Meanwhile, Clinton, a team that, they've really played some up-high competition. They were going at it against Union County, and they have had some frustrations against teams like Daniel and Newberry, who are both ranked. Well, Zoom Cook and the Red Devils were ready to go. Gets into the end zone there. Later on, Owen Glenn and P.J. McGowan connecting, and Clinton with a 60-0 win, a 4th straight win against their neighbors, Union County, as the Red Devils get back to 500 overall at 3-3, ahead of region play that begins for them this week. Just some of the action from last week. We'll look ahead to more in a bit, but let's go to the roundtable. Todd Summers, Mariah Ross, and I talking much about what they saw during the past week, especially in the 5A ranks. So, Todd, you covered the Burns-Dorman game last week. I was surprised. I really thought Burns would take care of things on the home field, but give me some impressions of further expansion from what we've already seen in the highlights of that ball game.
They're pretty evenly matched teams, but I agree with you in that I thought the fact that Burns was at home, that maybe they would have the slight edge, but Dorman had that chip on their shoulder because they hadn't beaten them in a couple of years, and they came out, and right off the bat, Nick Means breaks off a 79-yard run that goes for a touchdown, and you felt that energy for Dorman. Means ended up with 170 yards rushing in the game, but Burns came back. They took the lead briefly, and then Dorman came right back, and part of that was because Kane Rogers threw 2 interceptions, both going to Jabez Thomas. He returned one of them for an interception. And then late in the game, fourth quarter, Kane Rogers had the ball. They were trying to go downfield to get a go-ahead score, and he fumbles the football. Dorman jumps on it. Jabez Thomas adds a short rushing touchdown, and that pretty much seals the game. But if you want to know what the difference in that game was, Burns turned the ball over 3 times. Kane Rogers did not take care of the football, and I wouldn't be stunned if they're at least considering other options at the quarterback position. They didn't make the change last Friday night, but going forward, if Rogers continues to turn the ball over, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some kind of a change there.
So you've got Fuller and Segura out of the backfield on Burns, but Nick Means, who, by the way, was a great soundbite post-game.
Was he energetic or what?
I mean, he might be, yeah. He's right up there for best interview, but I mean, all things considered, he made folks notice him, I thought, in that game. Did you think that, he's worth mentioning in the same sentence with the 2 really good running backs for Burns?
I talked to him coming into the game on Monday over at Dorman, and he said that he played middle school football with Trey Segura, and he knew a lot of the guys on the Burns team, and he really wanted to beat Burns. He had not beaten them in his career, and he took it personally when they lost last year. He said that he cried. He really genuinely hurt. And then you watched him play Friday night, and he looked like a guy that really, really wanted to beat Burns. And it should not be understated that Michael Lancaster came back to Dorman to coach the offensive line, and Dorman's offensive line is an absolute strength. giving Nick Means some big holes to run through, Isaac Tate some big holes to run through. So that is part of the reason why the Cavaliers are having success, is because offensively they're running the football with a lot of success.
Now, Mariah, last week you got to see a couple of teams I think are really good in 5A, but in many respects it might have worked as an elimination game in the Region 1 5A race. Greenwood hung on and took down Hillcrest. Give me some impressions, because you saw Tristan Lewis, much different quarterback than Hillcrest Jackson Free.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I saw was two very strong, very talented teams kind of pull on each other's weaknesses. For Greenwood, it's funny that you say Tristan Lewis, very different quarterback. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. They had a total of 3, and they were able to build a 17-point lead by the third quarter. But then similar to that game at Hannah, things kind of slowed down. A couple penalties and self-inflicted wounds had them in 2nd and long and 3rd and long situations that they weren't always able to convert. And that opened the door for Jackson Free and the Hillcrest Rams to try to mount that late comeback. Free had 2 passing touchdowns in that second half to pull within 4, but then it was penalties on their side that kind of allowed Greenwood to hang on to the ball and eventually run out the clock. Free also had 2 interceptions, one coming with about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and one would think, hey, if you play your cards right, the defense could get you off of the field and allow you to maybe take a late lead, but that unfortunately didn't happen. Like I said, Greenwood able to run the clock out with Tristan Lewis and pull out that close win, 24-20.
And Hillcrest had gotten challenged by Malden the week before and won. And then going into Friday, they'll now play Hannah, and Hillcrest will need a win. And Greenwood's the biggest Hillcrest fan in the world, because if Hillcrest can beat Hannah, which is possible, then you have 3 teams in that region, all with 1 loss, all having beaten each other, and it could still lead to a 3-way championship. And Todd, what about the Dorman defense? I've been impressed when I've seen them play this year. They seem to be like they're an outfit to keep an eye on down the stretch, and it could help them against the likes of a Gaffney or a Spartanburg.
We've heard so much about Polo Anderson, the safety out of Dorman that's going to Clemson. He's a Shrine Bowler. But on the field Friday night against Burns, Jabez Thomas, number 5, was the best defender on the field. He was making lots of big plays. Like I said, he had a couple of interceptions, returned one of them from the score. He almost had a 3rd interception. So they are causing some problems up front, and then that's causing the opposing quarterback to maybe hurry just a little bit, and the Dorman secondary is pretty strong.
Now, Mariah, among the interesting matchups coming up in Week 7 in the high school red zone, you've got St. Joe's hopping on the bus for the short ride around the corner over to Christ Church. And a side story here is a battle of really good running backs.
Michael Martin is coming off a nearly 300-yard performance against Hampton County. He's averaging around 120 rushing yards per game. And for St. Joe's, they have Mac Rambo, who is just absolutely stellar in that position, closing in on 1,000 yards so far and is among one of the top running backs in the area.
Coming up, we've got much more from week number 6, including the Greenwood Eagles. That game against Hillcrest. We'll break it down further for you. It's just ahead on the Review Preview. Preview more from week 6 in a moment. We're getting ready for week 7, and among the games, well, some history is being made at Ware Shoals. Last week, when they got off to a 5-0 start, that matched their best start this century from 2001. If they win against Whitmire on Friday night, the Hornets will be 6-0 for the first time since the late 80s. They appreciate their history at Ware Shoals. Names like Tommy Davis, Jerry Butler, and they play in quite the historic place. And Todd Summers has more.
The weight room at Ware Shoals looks like an old dungeon, perched atop the end zone where the players put in the work it takes to be great.
It definitely gives us a sense of toughness and like unity because we're all in it together.
It's part of who we are. It's part of the things that we teach. Earning what you get, earning these wins. You know, we earn it in this weight room.
It's nothing fancy, benches, racks, weights, and plenty of sweat, considering it has no air conditioning.
Just live there sweating with your brothers. You have to use your surroundings to make do. It gives you that sense of toughness, that old feeling, that old-fashioned, you know, just weights banging.
Everything we do is old school around here. We just old weights, old equipment, but a 45-pound weight still weighs 45 pounds.
As preparation shifts outside, the Hornets go through drills in the outfield grass of a baseball stadium that was completed in 1931. And the school itself was built almost a century ago.
It's 99 years old, be 100 next year. When you walk on the field, you just feel everything. On Friday night, you feel all the history here.
It's kind of refreshing to know that generations of Hornets walked a very similar path to what this 2025 team experiences every day. And that connection is part of what makes Ware Shoals football uniquely special.
Watching alumni come out, it's important to them and it's important to us too. You know, we always talk about tradition here at Ware Shoals.
I'm going to go out here and play where people played before and it being in the same spot and the same stuff. Our place is a tough environment to play, especially when we're winning. We're somebody's nightmare.
We'll be fine. Now down the road in Greenwood County, the Eagles of Greenwood taking on Hillcrest last week, a Region 1-5A battle, trying to avenge a loss against Hannah. Tristan Lewis and crew took a 24-7 lead on Hillcrest, but Jackson Free and Jalen Copeland getting together on that hookup. It was 24-13. Then in the third quarter, Free able to find Luke McCory. High steps out of would-be tacklers, big gain on 4th and 3. It led to a McCory touchdown. And Hillcrest would be back within 4 at 24-20 after that little toss by Free to the receiver in the end zone. In the fourth quarter, still a 4-point game. Free trying to continue the rally, maybe overtake mighty Greenwood, but he's intercepted by Isaiah Goodwin. And a huge play as that seals the deal. Another close win for Greenwood. Their past 4 games decided by 1 point on 2 different occasions and 6 on another, and then a 4-pointer last week to get to 1-1 in the region. Malden and Hannah, Yellow Jackets trying to get to 2-0 and make it 9 out of 10 against the visiting Mavericks, and they took control early. Jalen Watson with a touchdown, then Will Mayfield and Watson getting together on a 40-yarder. But give the Mavs credit, they are a vastly improved team after managing just 3 combined wins over the past couple of seasons. Reddick Langston, their quarterback who leads them in rushing, gets into the end zone there. They forced overtime in that game. Eventually, Hannah pulled it out 28-21 to stay unbeaten in the region. They now have got a big one at Hillcrest coming up Friday night. Don't sleep on the Greenville Red Raiders. That guy right there, Scoot Watson, facing his former team, Jail Man. And the Red Raiders going for a 4th straight win on the season, getting play like that. Tristan Reese intercepted by Kaysen Carson. It set up Keyshawn Farrow. A 10-yard touchdown run. Greenville was rolling, and they roll on to the victory. Man had snapped a 9-game losing streak in the series with a win under Watson last year, but Scoot gets back at him with a 34-0 triumph. Easley and Woodmont, couple of 0-1 teams in Region 1-5A as the night began. Wildcats trying to make it 6 out of 8, and they were looking good. Amari Harris punching it in and a 7-0 lead. Matthew Hillstock, though, coming back for the Green Wave, a 15-yard score that tied the ball game at 7. Eventually, Woodmont built a 22-7 lead in this game. Harper Doyle and Frank Lewis on that connection, snapping the 7-all tie, but Easley rallies. And an Easley team that won just 1 time a year ago gets a 3rd one on the season and evens up the record at 1-1 in the region, 30-22. Non-region action, Broome coming off a huge win at Powdersville, taking their act to Blacksburg. and Taekwon Booker into the end zone for a score to extend a third quarter lead to 34-7. And Broome went 8-0 all time against the Wildcats. Booker again made it 40-7 and back to 500 overall for Broome. They're 3-3. Blacksburg falling to 0-6 on the year. Landrum and Blue Ridge getting together in northern Greenville County. Landrum put 74 on the Tigers defense a year ago when they got a win, and they came out with some trickery. A little toss to Trey Nesbitt, who finds Braylon Revis for the touchdown and an early lead. But Gavin Forrester and Blue Ridge off to their best start under head coach John Boggs and trying to get to 4-1 for the first time since 2014. You saw that touchdown, and later on, 55-yard run right there for a score. And when it's done, Blue Ridge avenging last year's loss, winning 4 of their first 5 on the year, 63-28. There's the sprint to the end zone from 55 yards out. Carolina and Pendleton. And a Pendleton team trying to win for an 8th time in the past 9 games against the Trojans, who were trying to get over 500 this deep into the season for the first time in a long time. But Jace Harrison Whitner with the interception set up a Bray Spear touchdown. Pendleton getting a second win on the year as they moved on to the 41-6 triumph. Little touchdown connection right there. Dax Allen and Mellow Mattress. Christ Church welcomed in Hampton County from the Low Country, a 450-mile round trip for the visitors, who were ranked in the top 10 in 2A going in against the 3A Cavaliers, and Michael Martin, who had himself a night. We talked about it earlier. 297 rushing yards on the season. He now has 12 touchdowns, and the Cavaliers holding off their visitors from far away 40-35. Christ Church was supposed to go down there last year, but Helene canceled the game. Well, they got the win in this year's meeting. Liberty and Crescent in a non-region battle in Lower Anderson County. Tigers team looking to get a 3rd win on the year and snap a 21-all deadlock in the series. And Mason Evans to Amiri Acker, and look at him go. Acker named to the Shrine Bowl this past weekend. Shows you that kind of talent. Crescent able to pull away to the victory, 34-27 in a tight game. And in Western North Carolina, Western Piedmont action, Chase at home against RS Central, but Elmer Littlejohn and the visiting Hilltoppers took control early. Gets into the end zone there. Jacus Smith with a touchdown made it 20-0 RS Central, and they cruise on to the victory, 42-7. Coming up, we wrap it up with our plays of the week just ahead on the Review Preview. We welcome you back as we get ready for week 7 in the high school red zone. Let's put a final stamp on week number 6 with our plays of the week, and start you out. Play number 5 comes from the Abbeville game. Westside rallied in the 4th quarter for the win. Christian Webb Scott off the block punt, using the size to go up there, pull it down and get some yards as part of the comeback, as Abbeville saw Westside come in, rally for its first win of the year, and Christian Webb Scott gets play number 5. Play number 4, Norman and Burns. Kane Rogers to chew Harris, and Harris does the rest. Some high stepping was involved, eludes defenders, gets it in for the score. However, it wasn't enough as Harris and crew lost by 12 to the Cavaliers. Play number 3 from the east side loss at Boiling Springs, just a sophomore and a big fella, Deshae Mitchell, shows you power and then some acrobatics. Look at the somersault he got in for the touchdown. Not enough, but it's play number 3. Play number 2, well, Gaffney's Josiah Hill had a better than 100-yard night, and here he drags defenders. He wanted to get to the end zone, and he does. Gaffney got the win. Hill had a big night, and some Vikings couldn't pull him down. And play number 1 from the Greenwood win against Hillcrest, and Kobe Parks, right place, right time on the interception from Jackson Free. A big one indeed in Greenwood's win. Coming up on television, 11 o'clock Friday on Channel 7, 11:35 on the CW High School Red Zone. We'll see you then. Thanks so much for checking us out tonight, and we'll see you soon.